Hello, and welcome to our PT session for teachers only. And today I'm so excited because we are talking about social emotional learning with amazing and tremendous educator, Ilene Winokur. And I would love to mention a few words before I'm going to pass the stage to Ilene. So first things first, I can see lots of amazing comments from you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to mention that please do drop a comment in the Q&A box. What country are you tuning from? What is your teaching role? And what do you know about SEL? If you don't know anything about SEL, what it really means, it's okay. You can drop a comment here and we will know that it's something new and it's useful to you, okay? So it's going to be amazing. You don't need to know everything. So because Ilene is going to cover everything again about SEL, and she's going to mention amazing things like, to me, it's synonymous to social emotional learning, like connection, belonging, and super important for learning when we talk about learning and teaching our students. So, and yep, this is the name of our discussion today, the connection between well-being and learning. And I'm so excited to say that during this session, I'm going to share with the link to our Wakelet collection that Ilene has prepared for you with lots of great resources, like they are about SEL, SAEL, and you're going to learn even more and dive a little bit deeper about this meaningful discussion. I also would love to mention that in this collection is going to be a link to Ilene's blog post. She has a podcast, amazing podcast with greatest educator, and I want to advise you to start being a part of this podcast. Like you can start following her. And I would love to mention that there is a Q&A box, so you can ask any questions there. You can drop them, and we would appreciate it because Ilene is a great expert, and she can cover all the questions that you've got. So, and of course, the last thing from my side is that please do share with your insights, ideas, and highlights from this video session. Capture them and post them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please don't forget to add the hashtags. That's how we can get this connection. We can see these comments, these captures that you have taken from the session, like Buncee idea, journeys to belonging, and of course, teachers love edu. So on this terrific and positive note, I'm so excited to invite Dr. Ilene Winokur. So sorry for me. Hello, Ilene. Welcome to Teachers Love Edu. And I'm so excited. Please do share. Please introduce yourself. You've got amazing experience in learning. And I'm not a big fan of numbers in learning, in teaching, I mean. It's like only the numbers, but yours, numbers and experience that you've got teaching, like, I'm speechless. Please do share with your teaching experience, and because it's blow-minded. So the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much for inviting me on your live show and for letting me share my experiences and my passion for relationships and connecting and networking and belonging, all of those things which relate to social emotional learning. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because part of what I want to show is who I am. So let's see. Share. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's on.
Yay. Perfect. Yay. So as you said, this session is SEL 101, the basics in the connection between well-being and learning. Sometimes we don't realize what those connections are, but since you talked about my introduction, I was born here where I am right now in Buffalo, New York, and I'm actually visiting my mom right now. I hadn't seen her for about 16 months, so it's great to be back here. But I've lived in Kuwait since 1984. While I was studying at the university here in Buffalo, I met my husband, my love of my life, and I moved to Kuwait in 1984, where he is from. And I have 3 children. They're all over the world in different places now, old enough to be working and on their own. And as you said, I do have a long history of education, 25 years and counting. And it started kind of by accident because I wasn't really thinking about going into teaching, but a friend of mine called me and gave me this opportunity, and I haven't left it since. I retired in 2019 from full-time work, but I'm still involved in education. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, like Anna, I offer sessions and support to refugees and displaced students and teachers, and also network with teachers all around the world through my PLNs. I've been a teacher in elementary school, in intensive English at the college level. I've been an administrator at both levels. And I started blogging about 2 years ago about my experiences of belonging in Kuwait and in Buffalo, New York. And that led me to podcasting because I was really interested in what others felt, what other educators, other people felt about feeling a sense of belonging. And today's episode was released, and I'm now up to 70 episodes, which is like really amazing. And I consider myself a PD specialist because I love connecting with educators and sharing what I know so that they can know also, and also learning from them. I talk about belonging before Bloom because we want to be sure that we have those relationships, we have that social emotional aspect before we start with the content. So that's really, really important. So that's a bit about me.
Thank you for your podcast. I've been listening like for, I don't remember the number of them, but all of them are so inspiring too. Like,
oh, thank you. Yes, I learn something each time from each one of my guests, which is so amazing. In fact, I want to start blogging about the podcast episodes because I think it's really important to be able to talk about, you know, I can put on a graphic a quote or something like that, but it really doesn't capture the essence of a half an hour, 40 minutes, or even an hour of discussion about really important issues. So that's one of the projects I have on my bucket list. So let's look at what we're going to talk about today for those of you who are out there watching. Social and emotional learning, we're going to talk about what is it and why is it important in your classroom. And so a lot of times, because of the guidelines, the restrictions, the testing, assessment, the fact that we have a particular time for school year and school days, we feel this pressure to finish the content. We have to get them the information. Within a school year, they need to know this much. They have to reach these outcomes. And we sometimes forget that in order for them, the students, to learn all of that information, they really have to feel safe and comfortable. So we're going to talk a little bit about that connection between feeling safe, that sense of belonging, those relationships, and that all-encompassing social emotional learning, and how that has to be brought into your classroom as part of your content teaching. So I love to be interactive. That's a real big part of my PD sessions, is not lecturing or talking the whole time, even when it's an online situation. So what I'd love for you to do, and Anna, if you could sort of monitor the chat, I'm sure you were going to do that anyway, so I don't have to tell you that. Because I can't see it while I'm presenting. What does social and emotional learning mean to you? So if you could put that in the chat, and then Anna will share some of your beautiful messages, I'm sure.
Yeah. So please do share. Don't be shy. Yeah, share with your opinion what SEL means.
When you hear that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, you may even use the synonymous, all the words that pop up in your head, on your mind, when you hear about SEL.
Right.
Yeah, there is a comment from Insa. So important topic. Absolutely agree. Like 100%.
Okay. I'm going to move on, but please keep adding your thoughts as I'm talking. So if something comes to mind, please just put it in the chat box in the comments. So one of the first things I always talk about when I'm talking about social emotional learning, and especially if you want to see the connections, I was going to show this video, but I think it would be really helpful. It's about 6 minutes long, and I don't want to take up the time, but I did add it to the Wakelet collection. And CASEL.org is the main organization, I would say, the go-to organization for all things social emotional learning in education. And so this particular video on YouTube shows administrators and educators and students in actual classrooms, excuse me, and how they interact and why SEL is so important. It's allergy season, so sorry for my voice. Excuse me. So if you go to, let me go ahead and show this in presentation so you can actually see it. If you see the CASEL 5, so they talk about 5 broad and interrelated areas of competence. When you go to their website, it's filled with, and I'll show you that in a second, it's filled with information, research, a reflection that you and your school can do about how well you're doing in terms of social emotional learning and these 5 areas. And I've included that reflection document, which is on their website, but I've included in Wakelet so it's easier for you to all to get to. So the 5 broad areas are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And if you go to their website, you will see each one broken down. Obviously, self-awareness has to do with your ability to understand yourself, that the whole idea of understanding how you interact with other people, being self-aware of your own skills and areas that you need improvement, having self-esteem, self-efficacy, having that growth mindset. Self-management, of course, has to do with being able to manage your emotions, those big emotions. And actually, obviously, we can apply this also to teachers. And if you see the rings on that diagram that that CASEL has, you can see that it starts in the classroom, goes out to the whole school, goes out to families and caregivers, and in the largest circle, it's our community. So how do we interact with each other, and how does that affect how we view ourselves, what confidence we have in our ability to learn? And as learners, it's very, very important. Social awareness, of course, is the interpersonal skills and relationship skills, which I'll talk a little bit about in terms of belonging. Teacher to student, student to student, student to teacher, teacher to admin, all of those relationship skills. And then responsible decision making. Do we know how to make decisions, and how do we make those decisions? And are they decisions that are done responsibly, meaning we've really thought them out and then made that decision and been able to go ahead with it? There is a slide deck that CASEL also offers to presenters. And so I've pulled these slides from CASEL also. So if we're looking specifically in the classroom, classroom-based approaches include explicit instruction. So you will find now, especially after this whole year, but even previously, there are a number of different places that you can go to find packages or programs for social emotional learning to teach those skills and attitudes. I have mixed feelings about them, but there are some very good ones out there. I will add them to the Wakelet, which I haven't done yet, but I will add a couple to the Wakelet because there are some really good ones out there. They also offer webinars about their programs, and they need to be practiced within the classroom. So you know how we often have a program that's given to us by the school, and we have to follow it, but we don't really understand how it works. if you have a program that is presented to you, either something that the school has created or something that the school has purchased or become involved with, you need to make sure that you understand where it fits into your curriculum and how you're going to do it within your classroom every day, all the time. It isn't something that you do as a unit and then the rest of the year you're doing other things. You're always pointing it out. When you see those behaviors in class from your students, when you model something in class, you're very specific and explicit about pointing that out. Culturally responsive is really important too, because we want to make sure that we don't exclude any of our students by the fact that we're so busy in our classroom. We certainly don't ever do it on purpose. But how do we do that in a way that we never exclude and we're always inclusive to all of our students? Teaching practices such as cooperative learning and project-based learning. I do a whole session just about project-based learning and how important that is to social emotional learning and having and giving, not giving, but students having agency. And that's something that I don't have time to go into. Also, if you're a member of ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education, they have an excellent ISTE-U session that you can do about project-based learning and the use of technology and social emotional skills. And then integrating social emotional learning and academic curriculum. So while you're doing language arts, math, science, studying other languages, social studies, health, any of your content areas, all should be encased with social emotional learning and those skills. Again, pointing them out and being discreet about them. We shouldn't just assume students know how to do these things. And so Castle also says high quality SEL instruction has 4 elements. It's sequenced, it's active, it's focused, and it's explicit. And if you look at the first letters of each of these, it spells out safe, which is an extremely important part of being able to feel that well-being in the classroom. So when you walk into that classroom as a student, and even as a teacher, but we're talking about learning. So as a student, you feel that safe space that if you make a mistake, you're not going to be judged for it. That you even want to try something new. Because I know when I was teaching intensive English, there were so many students who were uncomfortable with practicing their speaking or their writing because they were afraid that they would make a mistake in front of everybody in the class, and especially would disappoint their teacher. And so we want to make sure that we create that safe space. And so this is the Castle framework, and they talk about a systemic approach. So when we're talking about a systemic approach, we're talking about the whole school, the whole community, as you see from those circles, with equitable learning environments so that everybody feels included, ed tech, anything that you're doing in the classroom is accessible to all, whatever their needs are, that we take into consideration that cultural responsiveness to make sure that all are inclusive. If we have an international element to the classroom or different people in different levels or different people in the classroom. Coordinated practices across settings and throughout the curricula and school culture, like I mentioned before. School-wide practices and policies that align to what you're doing in the classroom, which is why their reflection instrument is so good, because it allows us to sit down with other teachers, with administration, and say, are we doing what we say we're doing? So you know how all schools have a mission statement? It's really important to have that mission statement, and we need to follow and do what we're saying in that mission statement. It's the same thing with social emotional learning. If we're doing something, if we're saying we do something in our classrooms regarding social emotional learning, say we're supporting students to ensure that they have self-efficacy, that they believe in themselves that they can learn, then we need to make sure that we're not using words like, you can't do this, you're unable to reach this level, your outcomes are way behind. If we use that deficit kind of talk, students will never get to the point where they have positive self-talk, where they believe that they can learn. So it all integrates with each other. And collaboration with families and community organizations, which is really important if we're talking social emotional learning. Sometimes in schools, we don't have access to counseling. We don't have, for whatever the reason, we don't have access to specific counseling that perhaps a student needs, perhaps testing. A student is having difficulties. We need to know what is causing that learning problem. And so we need to know what organizations are outside the school in order to be able to facilitate that information to us. And we also need to collaborate with families, communicate with them on a regular basis, not about it, just an individual student, but also sending out newsletters and things like that. Something that was really important this year for those students who were online, because you tend not to have that contact face-to-face with the families. And so we needed to sort of reinvent. That's why Buncee and Wakelet are terrific tools for being able to communicate with families and communicate with each other within the school, because they have that easy way that doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of time to learn. So, and I'll be talking about Buncee and Wakelet also a little bit later. So this just really quick is a graphic of a hierarchy of learner needs, which is from Mindset Works. I can also add the link to this website in the Wakelet collection. And Anna, if there are any questions that come up along the way, please let me know. You can interrupt me at any point.
Okay. Sure. I would love to add, that some of the our EduFolk, they have shared with these definitions or their thoughts and ideas about what SEL means. So if
go ahead. Yes.
Yes. So this is one from Prinavin. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. So sorry for that. So, I socialize with my students before they learn from me. So this is something like this. And one more from one of the Facebook users. If you are joining us from Facebook, please try to join us on YouTube so we can see your real names. It is going to be much better to see who is writing. So the base of any learning is nothing but social and emotional factors.
Right. Yes, that is so important. And we all know it intuitively as teachers that we need to make sure when we walk in the classroom that we feel good and that our students feel good, because we know that it's difficult to learn if we've got all kinds of distractions going on in our mind, maybe something that happened in the morning or something that happened on the way to school, or that we know what subject we're going to be learning and we're really uncomfortable about that. We don't understand it. So we know that intuitively. The problem is sometimes we don't know how to actually activate that within the classroom. And because the content kind of takes over, we forget that we also need to cater to that. I think after this year, Anna, we have a lot more attention being paid to the social, emotional aspects of our students, our teachers, our admin, because this past year has been so stressful. And so I see a lot more attention being paid to it, and a lot more attention, a lot more understanding about it. But then it's, okay, then how do I integrate that into what I'm doing? So I just want to again emphasize how important it is to have that learning mindset. When I walk into the classroom, or I'm coming into a PD session, or I'm going into, reading a book or listening to a webinar, whatever it is, I have to have that learning mindset. I need to feel that I belong in this learning community. And it's right. It's not just fitting in to the learning community, not just I'm going to sit here and be part of this learning community, but I actually feel that I can interact with other students, that I can appreciate what they're teaching me, and also so I can learn from them and we can learn from each other, but also that I feel calm in that
Oh my God.
learning community.
Amazing. Just
Right? Yeah.
wow. And with everyone feels that you've mentioned intuitively. Yes, you're the first presenter, speaker, and person from whom I can hear this, because I always did like this intuitively. You know, there's many things
Yes.
were done. I'm sorry for this, but yes,
It's true.
and
No, it's really true. And you know what? I would never want to say that there aren't teachers who walk in who know that needs to happen, who walk in and say, we're going to just learn the content and forget about how you feel today. But we just, we're always such a rush. Well, I can give you a couple of minutes to talk about what's bothering you, but a lot of times it gets pushed to the side. But if I'm sitting here thinking as a learner about something that happened on my way to school or last night, or, I come from a traumatic experience. I'm a displaced person. I'm, a newcomer to the school. I don't have that language ability to communicate.
yes,
All of those things interfere with how I'm going to feel sitting on this chair at this desk in this classroom. And it's going to, I'll tell you a story. I once had a student in 3rd grade when I first started teaching in the 1990s, and she had terrible exam anxiety, terrible test anxiety. And it was to the point where one day she just broke down. I mean, this is 3rd grade. It's not high stakes. It was just a regular test. She could not function. She started crying. I ended up taking her down to the counselor. And later on, I asked the questions verbally. She was a very smart, she's an adult now. She's a very smart student, but she, for some reason, and of course, because she was so anxious, she completely shut down and wasn't able to answer the question. She looked at the first 2 questions and drew a blank. And that was the end. She just broke down. So it was really important for me to be able to tell her, the information. And so what I started doing then, I didn't realize that I was a new teacher. So what I started doing then was saying, okay, everybody, just before we start, take a deep breath and remember how much you studied and how much you've learned in class, and that this information, and now you're just going to show me that you know this information. It made such a difference just to take those extra 30 seconds before we started the test. And I wouldn't have realized that except for this particular student who had such terrible anxiety. And I thought, we can't start each test like this, not just for her, but I was thinking, well, maybe there are other students who are anxious. It doesn't produce itself in tears and shutting down or whatever. But everybody gets tense. We all get tense when we're having a test.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or going live.
Or going live. Yes, that's true. Yeah. And so having these messages, this positive self-talk that I mentioned before about, I can change my abilities through effort. So I'm not going to say I can't learn math, or I can't learn science, or I'm not going to be able to get to any really good level of proficiency in this language. We believe that through effort, we can succeed. That's that self-efficacy.
Yes.
And that this work has value and purpose for me. So I wanted to show you that. And then if you see this sort of, it's based on the Maslow's hierarchy, which really wasn't a pyramid anyway, but that's another story. You'll see that if our physiological needs are met, food safety and love, again, that safety is right there at the base. And we have our learning strategies and habits and our learning mindsets. Then when we get the quality instruction, guidance, and experiences, that's the whole learning hierarchy. So look how far above, after all of that, students having agency, the learning readiness, and then we can introduce the content.
Oh, there's another one I would love to add also from Jacka. If you understand yourself, you will be able to understand others. You see, the same way it's about stages. We're not robots. We're not robots, definitely. We're emotional creatures.
Yes. And I talk about self-belonging in my book that hopefully will come out this fall about belonging.
Yay!
Yes, I'm excited about it. I talk about self-belonging, and that's all of that self-esteem, self-efficacy, self-confidence. And of course, we can't get that first. We can't start with that and then wait for our relationship. But as soon as we have that self-belonging, our relationships with others, whether it's professional or personal, is so much better. And it gives us that learning environment. So yes, thank you for that comment. That's so important. So
And
how do we create an environment for psychological safety and belonging? Because belonging is that sense of, it's not fitting in. It's, I really feel like I am supposed to be here, that I can learn. So a thriving learning ecosystem is a trustful and diverse community, consciously learning, working, and evolving together. So if you're sitting and thinking now and listening to what I'm saying and reading these words, you're saying to yourself, how does that fit my classroom? How does my classroom look within that? So, and through a variety of formal, non-formal, and informal learning experiences, environments, including nature. So we're talking about going out to our community, and with the shared purpose of thriving together. So again, just like that comment was, we're all in this together. If we feel we belong, we have that trust that this environment is safe and I can try new things and not be worried about either being judged or failing and nobody catching me or helping me, then I'm going to be in this thriving community together. And that's what we need to look at. Our classrooms and our schools need to be these thriving communities.
I think this is, Eileen, can I interrupt you? I
Yeah,
think this is
absolutely.
a problem of newcomer teachers because they want to look really strict. And I was like this.
Yes.
I thought that I know everything and I won't fail
Yes.
anyways. I'm
Yes.
like it's not okay. It's not successful behaving yourself like this, just from my experience like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's that book where they say don't smile until December or something like that, or 3 months after you've started. I remember when I first started teaching, I had a really small class because it was a brand new school. But I had a teaching assistant and she had a lot more experience than I do, but she didn't have the degree. So, but she had classroom experience. And so she would sit at the back of the room and she would go like this to me because I was so serious. She'd have to remind me to smile because these were third graders, 8 or 9 year olds. They're too little, if you're real serious with them, they're going to be like, and they were all language learners. And it was like, and I wanted to have fun. So it took me a little while, but it was so great because she would sit back there and I would look at her and I go, okay, I'm going to relax. So when people ask me, what would you advise new teachers? I would say, just relax and enjoy. Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to get into a little bit of how do we have these relationship building activities that create this sense of safety, create this sense of belonging. And so storytelling, and of course, storytelling about our own personal stories. We know as adults, if we don't feel we're in a safe space and we have those trusting relationships, storytelling is very difficult. So that's why it's really important. And storytelling builds on those relationships. So if we have that safe space and we tell those stories, that even increases the relationship. Journaling, project-based learning, as I mentioned before, collaborating with each other. So doing team building and starting, because you can't just collaborate. You have to sort of create that environment for collaboration. And sometimes because we're so busy, we forget to celebrate our successes. And that goes for students as well as us adults and teachers, just to take a moment and say, wow, I accomplished this. Isn't this great? And it doesn't have to be something really important like an award. It could be something as big as I was working on this particular outcome or this particular grammar point, or trying to remember some theory in science. And now I remembered it. I did well, and celebrating that success. And so if we do that in our classrooms, then our students will start doing that. And what's really great is, again, apps like Buncee and others have a great way to be able to have awards and just be able to point out what students are doing. So again, I've been talking for a long time, and I appreciate that people are putting things in the comments, but I would love to know, before I talk a little bit more about Buncee and Wakelet, what are tools or activities can or do you use for storytelling, journaling, project-based learning, collaborating, and celebrating success? So any of those, all of those, and put that in the chat.
Okay, yeah, any apps, any educational platforms that you use, or anything, yeah, because
Any
there's so many
activity
things
that you do, it doesn't have to do with technology. It could be, you know,
good tradition. Yeah, good
Mhm.
tradition that you've got. Like,
right.
wow, I like this one from Wafa. Teachers are inspire students and help them to collaborate. Yes, because they're really shy. Not all of the students are so sociable.
Right.
They're different, all different like we are. They're the same, like all different.
To connect that SEL, the interventions, the Castle's 5 core. This is their website. You can see there's another video, and you can see the statistics. I only didn't want to bog down with statistics, but they've actually done the research. They've collected the research. There's a meta study that they did. So if you're interested in the research behind why and how social emotional learning connects to improving academic outcomes in the content areas, let's say that you're convinced, but you're having trouble convincing your principal or your supervisor or your department head. This website, castle.org, is a wonderful place to go to find out more information about SEL, and also to be able to convince others within the school and the community about social emotional learning and the importance of it alongside the content. Okay. And then any other suggestions from the comments, Anna, about things that they use, activities or ed tech that they use for storytelling, journaling, or celebrating?
No, I think people are all ears listening.
Okay, that's
carefully.
good. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to show you Buncee, who I love so much. When I first started using Buncee about, I don't know, probably 2 years ago, I was sort of a lurker, like I was with social media, Twitter, because I wasn't teaching anymore, and I didn't really think that I could use it. I wasn't sure how to use it. And then they had this summer challenge, and I did all of the summer challenges, or the majority of them, and I just fell in love with this app. It's really easy to use, but what they've come out recently, I think within the last month or 6 weeks, is 2 boards. Again, I have them on my slides, so let me show them to you. There is a board for K to 6 and a board for 7 to 12, and I'd like to give a shout out to Gabby and Ida and Marie and the whole Buncee team for putting these together. And actually, because they're shareable now, we can add to them. So you can go ahead and add to them. But look at some of this is the one for K to 6, some of the activities that and templates that you could do. Of course, you can always go in and create your own. And that's another thing that's wonderful, because Buncee has so many templates, but that are ready to use. But they also have the ingredients, I call them, for putting together your own templates. They also have ideas. They have an ideas lab where a lot of teachers around the globe, maybe some who are watching, have added to the ideas lab some of the lessons.
Yeah, like lessons. Yeah, ready to use.
Yes. And so here, all about me, again, if we're talking about belonging and social emotional learning, different things that you could do, building positive relationships. There's a whole set of affirmations, which is really important. The whole idea of I am smart, I am talented, I can draw. all of those things. I can play music. I'm good in, all of those things, heroes and everything. So you can see some of the templates that have already been added. Of course, these templates are available on Buncee if you search on Buncee, but it's so nice that they have these two, K-6 and 7-12, where you can just go to them and find the SEL relationship skill templates all in one place. So I love that. And they also go along with, let me go back to this and let me show you in presentation mode so you can see it more clearly. It goes along with the castle elements, okay, those overall elements. So if you see here, if you click on them, when you go to the SEL toolkits, you can find all of the templates that they've added so far for self-awareness, for relationship skills, for social awareness, for responsible decision-making, and self-management. Again, also for 7-12. How easy is that? I mean, that you could actually go in and find templates right away for the individual areas that you want to concentrate on. And your students have access to these also, so they can go ahead and create on their own. Remember, if we're talking about helping students feel more independent and having agency, then being able to go in and create things on their own is really important. And students are so amazingly capable. And I'm sure you could probably tell lots of stories about your students coming up with things, and you're saying to yourself, wow, I didn't even think of
every
that,
time,
right?
every time like this.
Yes, yeah. And so again, I've added the links to these two boards in the Wakelet collection that Anna put together for this session, so you can easily find them. But I definitely would suggest going to buncee.com and checking it out if you're not already using Buncee. And then I have a Wakelet collection of just activities for social emotional learning. So let me see. Let me copy and paste this because I hadn't opened it. And let me open it on so you can see what's in there. Just for a second. So if you're lacking in things to do and you're not really sure what you want to do, Wakelet has, if you search, so if you join Wakelet, it's free, and you search SEL, you could also search belonging, but search SEL, look at all the collections that different teachers have put together around the world with all kinds of activities and information about social emotional learning. So you know how they say, don't reinvent the wheel? Yes. This is don't reinvent the wheel. Let's go to resources like Buncee's Ideas Lab and Wakelet's search function. And they also have lesson ideas now that they started a couple of months ago. So let's open this one. This one has 184 items. And let's see what these articles and research on SEL. So if you're interested in learning more about that, this person has a lot of information.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so so that's another way for you to find out about SEL and how to get involved. So one more thing for the chat. What is one thing you will do? Okay, so now what I'd like for everybody to do is sort of just think about sometimes I'm so excited about things, I feel like it's all in a rush, but I want everybody to just kind of take a deep breath and pause and think about what I've talked about so far. It's a lot of information to sort of simulate and synthesize, but thinking about the CASEL 5 elements, what I talked about in terms of being able to access apps like Buncee and Wakelet, the things that you're already doing in your classrooms, because we don't have to go outside of what we already do. I am sure that all of you who are listening right now are thinking to yourselves, gee, I do that, but I never thought of that as something connected to social emotional learning. So what connections have you made, or what things will you do that are new to improve your students' sense of well-being, which comes out of this whole idea of explicitly teaching and talking about and directing your students regarding social emotional learning. So I'd love for you to respond to, as you pause and just think for a second, what did I learn today that I already knew, which affirms and confirms what I'm doing, which is always a great thing for teachers. You know, we always have this self-doubt. We always think, you know, am I doing the right thing for my students? Because they're our responsibility. It's one of the reasons why for years I was not sure I wanted to get into education, because, you know, I could let a student down and not do the best for them. But there's that self-doubt, right? But then I realized, no, we do a lot of really great things. And if we make mistakes, we just own up to them. And our students really appreciate that, because, you know, we're not perfect either, right? So are you getting any responses, Anna, to what is one thing or many things you'll do to improve your students' sense of well-being in the classroom? Yeah.
Just nice and positive comments of appreciation to you, Ilene. So nice, thanks for nice presentation and the novel ideas relating SEL. Wonderful presentation. Please try to think what new activities you're going to take for the upcoming study year. I think it's going to be fun to exchange with ideas.
Right.
And I really would love to have more Sunday activities that we had before the pandemic. And I would love to find some time for this, because we had this feeling of belonging being on Sundays Club, because we discussed a lot projects, because we love PBL here. We had
wonderful
singing, because we are running the Beatles project. And we've
wow. That's amazing.
Yes, like on Flipgrid, we've got lots of videos like this. If you would love to, you can join us too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yes, Flipgrid is another great interactive resource, a great way for students to reflect, to get involved, to interact with each other. So I have just some reflection questions just for you to all think about. How can I spark their interest? And, you know, it's what's relatable to the students, and asking them to let you know what are things that they can do that are interesting to them. I remember reading a blog post a couple of months ago about a teacher in Canada who said that she had a student who just checked out every time they were in class. They would just sit there, didn't really want to respond to anything, even if it was like pulling teeth, as they say. And she finally discovered, just by a comment that was made, because she went to see the school's football or soccer team play, and this particular student played on the team. And when she came back the next school day, she mentioned that she had seen him play or whatever, and he just lit up. And she realized how passionate he was about the sport. And so where she could, of course she couldn't all the time, but where she could, she made that connection to his love of the sport. And also she had made that, you know, relationship with him, because he realized how much she appreciated and how much she knew about the sport and how much she wanted to learn more about the sport. So that connection, and he was like a different student after that.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So how can we spark their interest? Create a safe space, catch them when they falter, when they're not doing well. How do we catch them and tell them it's okay? You know, and not just it's okay, but what can we do together, or what do you think you can do in order to sort of move yourself forward, or be better the next time? And ensure their self-talk is positive. How do we ensure their self-talk is positive? We have to start with ourselves, I think, Anna, don't you? About our own self-talk. So when we have doubts, when we're not sure that we're doing the right thing, we need to be able to talk to ourselves without that deficit mindset. We need to say, I might not be there yet, or maybe I had a bad day, or this lesson didn't go very well, But let's be proactive. What can we do the next time that'll ensure,
Absolutely.
instead of sort of kicking ourselves up the block and saying, oh, that was really bad, but really coming out of it with a positive mindset.
Positive thinking. Yes,
Right.
this is really
Yep.
powerful thing.
And then these are all the ways you can connect with me. My podcast is Journeys to Belonging. It's on almost all of your favorite podcast platforms. And I am at Ilene Winokur on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And my website there is fully packed with all kinds of resources and Wakelet collections with updated resources all the time about belonging, professional self-belonging, personal belonging, and just some more about me. There are links to my podcast there, and also a link of a Wakelet collection to all of my blog posts. So if you want a one-stop shop for whatever I'm doing, there are also some of my previous webinars on there. And so you can catch, if you're interested in some of the other things related to belonging. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I haven't been able to see you at all.
Yeah, there are some comments that came from Citizen Concom. Some of the things that I do with my students is wellness check. This is amazing, actually, idea that I would love to grab from you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
I would love to start preparing my students' portfolios for everyone who is going to be a part of the course, because during the year, but better to full pack it at the very beginning. So you can do it with your students on Buncee. This is the perfect place because you can you can fulfill this collaborative option by using Buncee boards. This is perfect place.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, Wakelet.
And I'm glad you mentioned it because I forgot to. Yes, collaboration on Wakelet and especially on Buncee is so easy now. And adding your students as a class to be able to manage that on Buncee is really easy also. And it's so fun to use. You know, if you don't think you're creative, which I always grew up thinking, you know, that was one of my I can't do, I'm never going to do, I only do stick figures. And then I met Buncee and it was like, yeah, I need to stop saying that I can't do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks to this amazing educational platform that can support this inclusion and accessibility. I wanted to mention that I'm going to post the link to newly made collection. This is invite link, so you can share with your feedback, because I was asked by one of our Binu. Sorry that I'm pronouncing again, maybe incorrectly. Any feedback link? Yes, you can add your feedbacks to this collection. I'm going to upgrade it a little bit because I have just created this. It's going to look much, much better. And so that's, I would love to, and Ilene, she's going to be really happy to get your feedbacks.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm seeing all the names now in the comments. And I just want to say to everybody who joined live, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your feedback and for joining. And thank you to Anna for this wonderful venue and inviting me to be here today, and for Ida to have sort of put us together. Although you're my Wakelet buddy, Anna. So
yeah. You're too kind, Ilene. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to have you as a guest speaker, and you shared with your wisdom, great tips, amazing experience that you've got, and knowledge about SEL. It's powerful, and everyone should know it, especially these days. That's what we need. Everyone feels that. Thank you, Collins, for coming to you, Ilene.
Thank you.
This is one from Wafa. So she's saying that integrating new technologies using different platforms like Buncee, Wakelet is very interesting and makes the lesson interactive. Attractive and interactive, both of them.
Yes, very much so. Thank you, Wafa. That's important. Yes, and just understanding how we've all of us have been through an extremely, and continue to go through an extremely traumatic experience. And taking the time, whether you're starting the school year or whether you're in the middle of the school year, taking the time to find out and checking in. Somebody had mentioned wellness checks every day. Yes, checking in and checking in during the day. I know that sometimes people go quiet and we think, oh, they're really busy or something like that. But I've realized we need to check on them because sometimes they've gone quiet because they're just overwhelmed. And that goes for our students also and our colleagues in the school.
Yes, absolutely. There's thanks. Wonderful session. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And there's another comment from Judy. I know Judy. Hi, Judy. So I have students emoji to express their feeling before the lesson starts, or use some of their comfort item to show how they make them feel better. Oh, this is
That's a terrific idea, yes. Judy. Yes. Bring it. And it doesn't matter whether they're young or old. It doesn't have to be a show and tell kind of thing. You know, again, that storytelling, those personal connections. Why does that matter to you? And how does that make you feel? And then being able to talk about those big feelings, which often we ourselves push down because we're so busy and we have to get the work done, right? But no, we need to let those feelings out. Otherwise, it causes health problems for us.
Yes, that's true. And there is another from Jerry. Thank you, awesomeness. Thank you, Ilene.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks everyone. Excellent session, tremendous. Again, so honored, and thank you so much for bringing out so many great ideas and insights that I personally have taken from this session.
Wonderful.
I'm always happy to learn from you. Yes, Ilene, because Ilene is super experienced, and she was presenting an Inspire Malaysia Week. If you would love to find this video on YouTube too. So yeah, there's another comment from Judy. Exactly, being able to share the feeling is important. Just absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much from Kiki. Yeah. So on this happy note, I would love to say, Ilene, maybe any last words that you would love to share with our guests, dear guests today.
Again, I just want to thank you all, and please follow me on social media if you're on social media, and make sure that you let me know if you need anything. I have so many resources. I'm a research nerd. I'm happy to share, and happy to share my experiences also. And again, thank you all, and thank you, Anna.
Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm really happy about the session today. I would love to take some more notes because I've got lots of insights again, as I've mentioned before. And on this happy note again, I would love to say, stay safe, take care, and think about social emotional learning and what activities you're going to bring into your next or in our upcoming study year. Thanks everyone, and see you in the next PD sessions. Bye. Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.